For this video, I'll take you through the 3 core principles that I use when I light space scenes in Blender. So here's the starter story from the intro, made by Ole Magnus Sønderborg. Awesome model, very heavy for my computer, even though I have what I consider somewhat of a supercomputer. So I won't be using that for the test today or for the little showcase today, because it's just too slow to work with. Instead, I'll use this ship design here from an earlier video. Okay, so here we have basically the render. If we just rotate the camera, you can see here are the engines in the back and no other lighting. So I figured we just start from the get-go, and I'll be quite effective on this up front, and then at the end I'll dabble a little bit more. Be effective on the front so that you can actually see what the hell is going on. So if we start by adding a light, it'll be a sunlight, because it has to be a parallel light, right? And it has to have strength enough to be quite bright. And just to make sure that everything works really well, I set my albedo texture to be relatively bright. If this gray is too dark, it will be very difficult to gauge. So consider having a surface that is relatively bright to start with, and then all other things will sort of fall into place. So for the sun, just move that to the side a little bit. 10, 20, yeah, now we're talking. 30, 40. Cool. So what you notice is that it's actually quite, what do you say, bleachy. It's almost like it's crashing out in full white. Sorry, my English is failing me here, but this is sort of Danish expressions, but it's maximized and it's sort of crushing the image a little bit. But the upside is, when it's this powerful, you can see as I rotate the sun, you can see that this surface here is bouncing up on the hull itself, right? And the cool thing about this is that it gives this really stark setting or sort of feel that's important for space, because starkness is quite important. We will modify this over time, and I'll show you what's up with that. But see, even this one where the light comes in underneath the body here, if we play with the brightness of the light, you get lots of bounce, but still it remains very stark. So it's really cool to push the sun, let's say, beyond what you would normally do. That's the first part. The second part, let's just create a second light source here. That'll be a massive area light. What am I doing here? What's happening? There we go. And we'll make that a big one. And I'll make it cold, warm. Actually, I'll make it a little bit warm. And let's see. The bigger the light source is, the more watts it needs to really work. Okay, 1 milliwatt, fine. And then we just, you can see it's placed by the side of the ship. I can also make it bigger, I suppose. Come back to the color. There you go. So this is so big now that it actually illuminates the surface quite flatly, as you can see. If you want, you can certainly position it like this, right? So if you want to have less attention on the front, more attention on the wing and the back, you can move it back here. But for the case of argument right now, let's just have it remain here. And I'll sort of scale and play with this one. You can see I'm changing the color, not the power. I think it's easier just to change the color than it is to change the power, because writing in numbers and using this here thing is kind of useless when it's so many watts. So I don't know, bit of a busted system there. And I find that a scale of the width of this area light here, and I'll simply rotate it here to get a sense of what could be a bounce light from an unknown source. It's a little bright, maybe. Something like that. Now there's a little bit of fill. So these two lights, you know, they work opposite each other. So here I'm just selecting both and rotating them around. it sort of works. It's a little bit of fill. However, if we really want to get to it, we can really get to the last part by having a secondary. Let's make that cool. A little rim light here. This, you would tend to, let's say if we do the same trick as before, when we rotate these, it'll be, you know, I'm not sure it's going to look good because the blue would maybe be a little bit too much. Actually, it works okay. But the key to all this is really having this overly bright sun. Having this one here be really bright. I'm actually surprised, to be honest, how well it works when you just rotate these. I thought the blue would feel quite harsh, this one that makes this little subtle rim light. That's why I wanted to come back to this one. So if we push this backwards a little bit onto the rear, so notice it disappears from here, come back to this one, and then we move the cold one up front maybe a little bit like that. Then we have sort of a nice interesting composition in a sense where this is rim light only, not so much in the middle, and then out here, as we go back to the ship, the blue rim light dissipates and the warm fill light gets a play in there. That works pretty well. And again, rotating it works surprisingly well. Let's do a quick render. And lastly, here you can see that I've added some bloom. So over here in the compositing settings, I have denoising enabled. That's because I use systems that need external denoising here. You can do that in your render pane normally out here, but I use K-cycles and I use lens sim, and that's a story for another time, so ignore that. What's important is that I split the image that comes out in two. I have a glare node, route the output through that with these settings, back in as an overlay on a lighten color, what's it called? A color mixer, mix color. What? This one, yeah, mix color. Choose set to lighten mode. That's basically like Photoshop, right? And then factor quite low. Then you get this nice soft bloomy effect. And in the viewer, composite to get that subtle thing there. You can certainly do more settings here, and you can certainly do that in post as well. I just put it in Blender, so if I do clips and whatnot, it would come out together. But yeah, that's really the key. Really simple. Super bright core parallel light that's really powerful. Here it's 50. Make sure your albedo and the texture is quite bright, not white, but certainly not 50% gray, like quite bright. Have a big, basically the size of your object bounce light, so to fill the empty void, and then have I guess this is really sort of almost the same size, a rim light that you can use to accent the outline of your ship. Then you have the foundations for really perfect space lighting, and these are the rules I adhere to always. And I would usually avoid having lighting straight on like this, and in that case actually I would lower the brightness of the sun, but I don't, it looks a little flat to me. I usually try to boost the light so it's overpowered, and then show most of the ship in sort of a subtle dark shade, so that you get to experience the bounce lights and all that stuff, all that good fun stuff. Here you can see what I mean with those bounce lights in on this one. Yeah, so that's my 3 rules for perfect space lighting. Pretty simple, really strong sunlight, like stronger than you think. The strength of that light will give you ample opportunity to make interesting compositions with it. If the camera is viewing the object as the same direction as the light, you need to turn it down, because of course, usually camera adaptation and whatnot would make the object appear differently. I like the sunlight really, really bright and crispy. Make sure that the texture is relatively bright, so you get a lot of bounce. Lots of good opportunities there. Big soft fill light, can be cold, can be warm, depending on maybe you have a planet nearby that'll bounce on the object. Maybe not, maybe you just cheat because you need a little bit of fill. Subtle rim light if needed. You can even make that with a spotlight or another sunlight as well if you want to make that super, super crisp along the entirety of the outline of the ship. And then add bloom settings either in post or in Blender to suit your liking. Again, helping to give the sensation of the sun being super, super bright. And that's really it. That's my playbook. And that's how it starts and that's how it ends. See you next time. No, not see you next time. If you want to see how I built the ship in the video, you can check it here. See you next time.